Oh Polly, it's for your sake alone. I left my dear old father, my country and my home. I left my dear old mother to weep and to mourn. I am a rebel soldier and far from my home. It's grape shot and musket and the cannon lumber loud. There's many a mangled body, the blanket for their shroud. There's many a mangled body left on the fields alone. I am a rebel soldier and far from my home.
Okay, I'm your host, James White. Thanks for joining me here today on the broadcast. It is the 19th day of November, 2020. I'm coming to you live here from Kalispell, Montana. Let me crank up my microphone here a little bit. Coming to you live here from Kalispell, Montana. Waiting for Mark and Terri Steman to join me on the phone to connect. They may be having some connection problems. We did a test yesterday evening, and it worked fine. But they're not haven't connected yet here this morning. But we're going to continue to move forward regardless. I got some things I'm going to cover if they don't happen to make it. We've got another show coming up here at 9:30, another live broadcast here, local Montana, sort of from my Montana Daily Gazette. But thanks again here for joining me today. We're going to be talking about whether Mark and Terri come on the line or not. We're going to be talking about CPS, family court, and child trafficking and the arrests that they've been making here recently. And there have been a lot of them, that's for sure. And that just warms our heart here at Northwest Liberty News and Critical Disclosure when we see these child traffickers getting arrested across the country, which is great stuff. We couldn't be more delighted. Now, it's happening all over the country. I'm not sure if you're aware of it. Arizona's really bad. I had yesterday on the broadcast, we had this microphone's not wanting to cooperate here. Yesterday on the broadcast, we had Melissa Deagle on the show. And if you didn't get a chance to see that, I would suggest that you do. And you can see the travesty that's going on there in Arizona. And Arizona is one of the worst. There's no doubt about it. But that type of stuff goes on everywhere. And we aim to expose it and help parents that are having issues with it, have them help them really fight it. It looks like Mark and Terri have made it here to the show. Let me bring them up here and see if I can get them here on the line. As I said, they're joining right now. We did a test last night. Everything seemed to work fine. So let's get them in here in a moment. Now, if you're not familiar with Mark and Terri Steman, we had them on the Steman. We had them on the show. I don't know. This is like the 5th or 6th time we've had them on. They're better known as the Forgotten American on Twitter. They've done some excellent work in trying to expose and help parents and expose the travesties that are. There they are. Okay, so they're on the show. They're on the broadcast here. Let me pull them over. Okay, so there we go. Okay, all right. Let me pull Mark and Terri. Here, let me give me a second here. I'll pull them over here to the big screen. There we go. Hey, Mark and Terri, how you doing? Thanks so much. It's your first time here on the show, being here on actual in video and in color. So it's great to have you here on the broadcast. I was just doing a little bit of lead in here before you came on the show, and we've got a lot of documents and stuff to go over. But thanks so much for joining us here on Critical Disclosure Radio.
Hi, Jim. It's a pleasure to be with you and your audience again today. We had a few technical issues there getting set up, but we got those worked out. We're just really thrilled to be with you and just be able to present ourselves to the people and talk a little bit about the kidnapping of our children. And today marks day 1,419 since our children were kidnapped under the color of law, and they've been held hostage, kept from us for, well, a whole lot of things, Title IV money, pursuant to what we believe is a case framing. And it's just an atrocity what's happening to us, to our children, to many other American families and children. And, what happens to families and children, Jim, in the midst of this isn't just about the taking of the kids and what happens to them, but the destruction on people's lives. It's just horrible. And, our country was established to be a free nation where we could pursue our happiness, where we would have rights. And to have these things happening to good people with seemingly no remedy, whether it be through the crimes that are committed against us or, remedy for civil procedures that were being denied, all these things, it kind of raises the question, what is really happening to us in our country? What's happening to us as a people? And I watched a little bit of the Melissa Deagle interview from yesterday, and I think she nailed it on a lot of points. Namely, what we see is an outright undermining, a seditious operation within our country to take away what we've been given by our Creator to our founding fathers. And we're reaching a point of not just where we're at now as far as critical disclosure, but critical action. We're gonna have to reach a point where we're gonna have to raise up and do something to stop this, because, like you said, Jim, the fraud. I mean, there's so much fraud going on, and if what we see happening in our voting process, to where we don't even have remedy through the voting process because of the fraud going on, what else are we as a people to do? We try and have attempted to pursue this through every channel for remedy and for justice. And yet we are denied again to this very day. We have not heard from anybody. All the people that we've reached out to for help, whether it be civil attorneys, all the agencies within our system of government. Only government can prosecute a crime, but no one will act on our behalf or on the behalf of other American families and children. And like we said earlier, this thing has to be stopped. And so, aptly, you have named your series here, Critical Disclosure, and it's very important for the American people to know what is happening to parents, good parents, and children, and the outright undermining of our country.
Well, I think it's, we can see how much of a fraud the whole, as you just touched on, the whole election process is. And I'm here to submit to you folks that same type of fraud is systemic throughout the legal system, throughout the DPHHS system, whatever it's called in your town, throughout the foster care system, the family court system. The type of corruption you're seeing in the voting process here that's being exposed across the country, they just don't stop with voting. They're corrupt in everything. The whole entire thing's a fraud. It's all a big con, as I've said on the show numerous times. And I'm just delighted that now yourself and myself and a lot of other people, not enough, but a lot more than ever now, are coming forth. And I just had, as a backup, in case you guys weren't able to get your connections figured out, I had a backup articles about all of the child trafficking busts that's been going on in the last month. I mean, it's just day after day after day almost, which is great news because these people are everywhere. I mean, in every aspect of society, in every profession, and they're in your town, folks. They're in your town too. You can't turn a blind eye to it. I know we've got a lot of documents to get to, and I hate to spend a lot of time bloviating here, so let me know.
Yeah, that's okay. I just wanted to take a minute, Jim, and just, since we're now live for the first time, but to formally introduce everybody to the Forgotten American, and maybe she can talk a little bit about what she presented at the very beginning. She has been very engaged in reaching out to families, and this is my beautiful wife, Terri. We've been happily married for 23 years. We have 7 beautiful children. We were just attempting to live our lives, quietly and with godliness and with dignity in accordance with our faith walk. We are Christians. We do believe in our Creator, the Redeemer of the Bible. And, we were a happy family. We were raising them up in the discipline and the instruction. And, the scriptures say that children are a heritage and that they're a reward to us, their parents. And we are given a charge by our Creator to raise them up in the instruction and discipline, as it says in Ephesians chapter 6, verses 1 through 4. Now, whether people, have faith or not, that's not really the issue. The issue is that we have chosen to practice our faith, and under the First Amendment of the Constitution, we have that right. And we are being denied that without being charged with or convicted of any crime. And so again, it begs the question, why are our children not with us? Where are they, and why are they not with us, their loving parents? And I just want to say right now, before I turn it over to Terri, so you can talk a little bit about her work and what she does in summary, that I just want my children to know that we love them and that we have not forsaken them. We have not quit on them. We care about them very deeply. Amy, Noah, Elena, Daisy, Teddy, Bo, David, and Abby, we miss you very much. And it hurts our heart to know that we have a complete systemic failure, especially after, every American is entitled to these rights, Jim, but I served the United States of America for 20 years in defense of these things against all enemies, foreign and domestic. And now I see the very enemies that we claim to fight in foreign theaters have infiltrated our system, or the spirit of it at least, and are working to deprive us of the very things that we hold sacred and dear of what we're about. And so, when we started this process, we wanted to not just fight for our family, but also the rights and families of others, because that's part of the oath that I took, was to support and to defend the Constitution. And so we felt very strongly that in reaching out to other people that we saw this happening to, that we could provide comfort, to build some sort of a support structure, give them encouragement to work with them, give them some hope that maybe we could come together, which we hope we can do at some point going forward. And so that's what Terri took upon herself to do. And it was exclusively her operation. So I'll let her comment a little bit about it.
Welcome, Terri.
Hi,
welcome to the show. Thanks so much. It's good to see you finally face to face. We've talked often on the phone, but it's good to have you here on the show in living color. Thanks for being here.
Yeah, thank you. We appreciate you. So since we are, in person here and live, I did do the Forgotten American on Twitter. It's at No Longer Ignored. And I have done a lot of focus on the corruption and the unlawfulness that's occurring within the family court and the CPS and the foster care and everything that's going on. And our case deals specifically with the state of Kentucky. But as we've discovered, this is happening across the nation and across the world, with social services, child protective services, whatever it's called in your country. But the shocking part for Americans is we're the land of the free and the home of the brave. And you wouldn't think that what you read about, if this happened in the UK or Ireland, like it's happening, that it would be happening in the United States of America. And our government, that, we consent, the people consent to be governed, and the taxes pay for them to do their job. And as Mark touched on, they're the ones that have to prosecute the crimes. And so it's just very frustrating that so many families have evidence that they've taken to their state. And then when their state government fails them, they go to the feds, they go to the FBI, they go to the DOJ, they go to the president. They're still ignored, and their children are still kept away from them. And, one of the things that I highlight is that, all of the children are loved, and not all of the children make it back home because of how bad the foster care system is. And what I wanted to comment on what you were talking about on these child trafficking busts, that the U.S. Marshals are continuously saying that they're rescuing these children. And one of the things that Megan Fox at PJ Media touched on when she did an interview with one of the U.S. Marshals is how many of these children are actually coming from the foster care system. And when you read these stories, one of our fellow warriors, who's been on your show before, who had his children taken in Missouri, actually called in when the U.S. Marshals started coming out with this information, and they admitted how, that these children, a lot of them were coming from the foster care system. But when you read these mainstream media articles, you don't see them highlighting that. And I think that's a real failure from our media once again, that and the government. I mean, they should be when they make these busts, they should be highlighting how bad the foster care system is and how dangerous it is. But we know that the powers, the more powerful don't want that information necessarily coming out, because they don't want to tarnish the image of Child Protective Services. And
well, here's something that really troubles me, and I've talked to guests on the show about this. When they go and rescue all these things I just flashed on the screen, 177 children here, 80 children here, 26 children here. What do they do to those children? They turn them over to CPS, for crying out loud. It's like one of the worst places you can actually turn a child over to. So they take them from the traffickers. They take them from like low-level traffickers, and then they turn them over to the most organized child trafficking ring in the entire country in the CPS system. That's how I see things.
Right. And people don't realize how easy it is to get sucked into this system. And that was another thing that Megan brought out after her interview with the U.S. Marshal, was that if your child runs away from home, they don't just return your child back to you. They get CPS involved. And so people that think that this can't happen to them because they don't, for whatever reason, it can happen very easily. And that's one of the things that we want to do, is we want to help highlight the corruption and the unlawfulness of the system, and that we have rights, not just as Americans, but as humans, to we have family integrity, and this has got to be exposed. Not enough people know about it. So we've got to expose the unlawfulness. And one of the things that we sent you for today's show were some pictures of off of social media of our oldest daughter, Amy, who was the predicate for our children being taken out of our custody, was based on a doctor's visit that I took our daughter Amy to when she was 17 years old, on February the 25th. And our children were removed from our custody on April the 6th. So when you look at the dates on these pictures of our daughter Amy, I've got it pointed out there.
What led to a human trafficking sting operation in
Hold on a second. I guess one of these something happened on one of these stations here. I guess he started playing the audio here on me. So there we go. I got it gone now. Go ahead.
So you can see on that one there, I've got it highlighted. This was an event. If you can just keep it on that one for a minute. This was an event that our daughter Amy participated in, called Distinguished Young Women of Louisville. This used to be the Junior Miss competition, and they've changed it. It's called Distinguished Young Women. So she participated in this event. And as you can see there, when they posted that on their social media, March 20th, 2016. So this issue with us is predicated on a doctor's visit that Amy went to on February the 25th of 2016. And then our contact with Child Protective Services began at the end of March. So you can see there, March 20th. So our children were removed out of our custody because supposedly the reason was Amy was in imminent danger of dying. And because of that, we were not allowed to have custody of any of our children based on Amy being in imminent danger of dying. So you can see, if you'll show.
She looks okay to me from this photo. She doesn't look like she's in danger of dying, at least on the photos that you've got here. Do you want to go to the next photo?
Yeah, if you go ahead and these are just some social media Most of them are from the Distinguished Young Women organization of Amy's participation, and you can just see the dates there. That one's March 17th. So this is almost a month after the doctor's appointment and a little less than a month before she was taken out of our custody on April the 6th. So that one's March 17th. This was I don't know that she's actually in this picture, but this was the competition. It was very physically strenuous, where they had a fitness type of routine involved in it that she participated in. So if you go on to the next one.
Okay, I think that's the...
Or maybe go back. There were 5 or 6 of them, I think.
Oh, for some reason that's the only one it's not picking up the other photos for some reason. Interesting.
Yeah. If you can go back to zoom in on that one.
Okay.
This was another picture of Amy with the arrow there, and the girls that she participated in the competition with. So.
Well, you can kind of see there, Jim, if I can just interject real quick, that Amy is very tall. She looks like in that picture to be the tallest one of just about all of the other girls there. And, she looks happy. And, one of the other things that they asserted was that we had complete lack of socialization with our kids, was just an outright lie, just an outright falsification of testimony. Amy was very engaged in a lot of different activities, church, the community, junior miss competitions. Our children were involved in, a lot of library activity, educational activity, outdoor activity. We made our education an adventure for them. We wanted to keep things interesting. We think that the pathway to great learning is to keep them interested and not to let them get bored. So we had a variety. We're just pursuing our happiness. We weren't bothering anybody. And, it's just horrible to watch what happened to our children, the lies that they're being told. And so I just wanted to just comment on that real quick. So go ahead.
Yeah. So if you can find those other 2, that's more of a close up on Amy, that would be great. Well, I finish on here.
Oh, I have them, but they're not, for some reason, they're not showing up. They're not, like they're corrupt or something, or I'm not sure why. Let's see.
I saw the one flash up there briefly.
I know, but it doesn't for some reason it doesn't want to take. I know what the ones you're talking about here. I see them here, but I can't see if I can.
Yeah, Mark touched on the homeschooling issue, and we'll get more into that once we get more into the court process. But I know that we had sent you something because our children are obviously being told things that are not accurate. And one of the issues was that we had not properly registered according to Kentucky state law for homeschooling, even though we have evidence to show that the school system, Jefferson County Public Schools, had sent us mail acknowledging that our children were homeschooled. Because we had registered as homeschooling. So some of the things, and we'll get into that more as we get further into court documents and stuff. But yeah, so that was another issue. So I just wanted to show that in the 2 that we weren't able to show that were more close up of just her, because
maybe I could pull it up here. It's going to be a black screen for a second. I'm able to pull.
Because that was the predicate for our children being taken out of our custody, was Amy's being in imminent danger of dying. So these pictures.
Okay, let's see. I'm just trying to find it here. I'll find it here in a minute.
The condition that she was in between. Yeah, so that was her picture for this event that she participated in. That was before she was taken out of our custody. So, like I said, the doctor's appointment was on February the 25th, and she was participating in this event, as you saw the dates on the other picture there from March.
I don't know if I can see the other photo in there. Is that another one of the ones you want me to see right here?
Yeah, just those 2. Yeah, that one. So that was just another one that they put out on their social media. of the girls, and you can see there's Amy right there with them.
Yeah, I mean, I'm just
So-
saying she doesn't look awfully traumatized to me. It seems like she's healthy. As you said, she seems to be taller than most of the other girls, so she's seemingly well nourished. You know, I mean,
Well, see, that was just part of the whole thing, Jim. I mean, when your daughter grows several inches over the span of a few months, you know, usually the body catches up as it matures. As far as, you know, I mean, when they sprout up, I mean, we're tall and thin, and Amy has the same body structure. So, you know, someone could look at that and say, well, we can case frame it this way and make her look this way, which we have all the evidence showing that that's what they did, when in fact that was not the case, because we have actual conflicting information from other healthcare assessors that indicate otherwise. And we already talked all about that. But, you know, for the sake of time in today's show, Jim, and I'm glad we were able to show those pictures, but, you know, up until today, we were doing a podcast because, you know, what has happened to us and what we know happens to other families is they're put in extremely difficult positions. Many people lose their jobs. They're come after for, you know, money for child support and a whole host of other things. They're even pursued by people who, once they begin to make things public, you know, to harass and intimidate and threaten them. And, you know, we have been through a very hard time. And we were when we were able to get with you and be able to go forward and with the information after we've exhausted all of the other avenues, we felt that the American people need to know, but for our own safety and security, because we know that there are terrorist acts being conducted within our system of government by very corrupt and dark people with certain kind of agendas that are outright destructive. But, you know, we were doing a podcast and we were showing a lot of documents because we didn't know what a day might bring forth. And thankfully, with our creator's help, we've been brought to this day, and we're just going to trust them to keep leading us day by day to continue to disclose and bring to light this great darkness, these lies, the fraud, so that we can do something about it together, that we can work together. So we know that other people are being subjected to these things that we've been subjected to in Kentucky and probably even across the country. So, you know, we wanted to get as much information out that we could. And so it wasn't because, you know, we were afraid of being on camera or anything like that. It was just that, hey, if something happens, we want to have as much out there that we can. And so, you know, that's where we come to today. And, you know, the title of your video or our interview today was, you know, Infiltration in Kentucky style with a question mark, because we think that the evidence that we have, and like you said, Jim, we have a ton of it, and we're not going to get through everything that we sent you today. But we want to highlight some key points that we do have evidence, we believe very strongly, that will show that, yes, like you asked in the last interview, are you telling me that there's an operative? Well, yeah, well, what happens if you have a ring of people who are involved in money laundering, possibly child trafficking, and they target people through the healthcare industry to case frame? And because the evidence will show in our case, that this was likely, this wasn't the case. I mean, we've got irrefutable evidence that we've only shown just a skim of the overall evidence. And so, you know, I think it might be good today if, you know, we just maybe pick up on some of the documents. I sent you an index so that we could just kind of reference these things. But, you know, what happens if you have someone who's operating within the system unlawfully and, you know, CPS is aligned with the corrupt family court system, and you go in there and you think that you might have due process and all these other things, but you don't. So what would explain that? Do we have people controlling this operation to people's destruction, to the injury of our children, to the sedition of our country? I mean, I think that they're legitimate questions that need to be asked. Is there an agenda behind this? Because like you said, you know, this happens like a script across the country. So, you know, when you look at all of the other fraud and the other things that are going on in our country, it kind of fits with the overall theme of what we see happening. And so, you know, we don't just want to come out and make these statements, but we make these statements pursuant to the disclosure of the evidence, because it's one thing to say something, it's another thing to show the picture. And so as we went along in this process, and Terri was working through the Forgotten American, that no longer ignored, we were doing the investigation ourselves, trying to get people to open up an investigation on the evidence. And yet, whether we went to the FBI, to our representatives, our senators, to U.S. attorneys, and we're presenting this evidence, nobody would step up to the plate to say, hey, we're going to take this on and we're going to do something about it. Okay. In fact, we were turned away at every turn. Just about every attorney that we went to, would not help us. We were hoping, well, maybe if we pursue this for a civil remedy, no, they wouldn't do it. Even after we had one attorney who acknowledged that the evidence was right there. It's like, how can that be, pointing these things out, and like, but he still wouldn't take it. And it's like, so what is it? I mean, is there some underlying agenda that they're being told that, oh, we don't prosecute CPS or family court cases, or like, what's the deal here? So, we have exhausted all of the avenues available to us. And so that's why we are at this point where we're going to, with your help and maybe the help of other people, to continue to disclose these things and encourage other people who have these kind of things happening to them to take a deeper dive, as you would say, into what the law says, what our rights are, what evidence that they have, and make the proper comparison. So there were a couple of documents, Jim, if we have time, or I don't know when you're going to do your break, but
yeah, sure,
that we would like to take a look at. One of the first ones I would like to take a look at would be, if you can refer to your index, I'd like to go down to 4F.
4F, okay.
Yeah, you can go to slide 4F.
Okay, so let me see here. So that's N. Okay, so let's see if I can make it over to that one. It's going to pop out for me.
Yeah, I didn't know if you could just access it.
There we go. That one?
Yeah.
Yes.
Okay.
Now, at the end of the last interview, Jim, we talked about in disclosing these images that, that we would be able to show where these were on the court documentation. Now, we have talked in our storyline up through April the 6th, when our children were taken. I was put in jail, and that's how they got a hold of our children without being charged with a crime. Later, we were able to receive documents through a healthcare provider who was taking care of our daughter, Amy, as she was put into the hospital unnecessarily, kept there for over 10 days, against her will. She didn't want to go. We, in interfacing with the hospital, were attempting to get information from them, and they denied us that, even though our attorney said that we did have a right to it. But what happened is they attached some court documents that we did not receive from our attorney, but that will show the correlation of these images and some other information. So I just wanted to show this part, because this person, who we believe the evidence will show is operating as an operative, and we made mention who she is, but she is the brother, or she has a brother who also at the time was employed by the Louisville Metro Police Department. So we think that they're part of a ring that's operating and taking the children and laundering the money that they receive from the Title IV funding. This is our hypothesis, but the evidence will show with pretty strongly that is indeed the case. And, so we just wanted to show this because these images will show a distinctive characteristic in the writing style. And this one here, you can kind of see the shape at the end with the loop and then the point. But if you go on to the next slide from here, okay, and I want you to zoom in, if you would, there toward just below the bottom. Okay, this is a dependency calendar document. You will see there's a stamp down there in the lower right-hand corner. That was apparently a stamp from the healthcare provider. And these documents came to us in email. But if you look at where that N is just above, you go back up, this is a summary of the events on April the 6th. And that's where that N shows up right there. Okay, so, there is a correlation. So if you go on to the next slide, and we can come back to this later, this is an enlargement of where not just the N, but the actual O, and you can kind of see the shape of the O. Now, in the one below, or the dark blue there, okay, this was extracted from a letter that we received from the girlfriend of Terry's father. Her name is Julie Asif, and her brother Danny was a lieutenant on the Louisville Metro Police Department. And you can kind of see with the loop, the open space in the O, that there appears to be a very close similarity.
Yeah, the same person wrote. The same person, I think, wrote both those. If that's those are two different documents, it looks like the same person to me. Yeah. I'm not a handwriting analysis expert, right, but just from right, having right, room temperature IQ, I can tell that that's that right, is the same. Go ahead.
Yeah. So go on to the next slide, Jim. Okay, so this is an extracted line from that letter. I'm going to show you this letter here in a minute, but it shows up in a line on page 2. This letter, I think, as I talked about in the previous interview, if you go on to the next slide, was written to us by Julie Asif in 2013. And this is page 2 of that document. I'm going to show you where that letter shows up right there, page 2. So this was a 2-page letter that at the time we were in relocation across the country. We wanted to be back closer with family and friends, to share our children with them. And after, we were trying to get some help in a bad economy to get resettled. And at the time, they were providing some help to us, and we were thankful for that at the time. But strangely, this letter was written to us, and it attempted to be an entrapment toward a dependency situation, because they were wanting us to, go apply for assistance. We didn't really feel like we needed to apply for assistance, because I did have a job, and we were just trying to get to a point where we had made enough money to where we could actually, get to places where we needed to go. So in page 1, you kind of see where all that comes out later on. But I just want to show for the sake of this point that there is a similarity in their writing. So go on to the next slide. Okay, so this was page 2 of this court document. And while we're, talking about this, I did want to make mention, if you zoom in real quick there on where it says NM and NF, this came out, it says that NM is for natural mother, NF stands for natural father, we think. And it shows there, it says, where you see the writing, it says NF or natural father, they have no contact with these people. Well, why just me? And why is it just me that I'm not allowed to have contact? Why was I the one put in jail? Why was I the one with the bench warrant? All these questions show that there was a targeted attack toward me, an attempt to.
So this is a court order? Is this a court order we're looking at right here from the judge?
Yeah, and you see that there's no court stamp or anything on it, right? But this came to us. You can see on the bottom. This is page 2 of the document that came to us through the healthcare practitioner, from the hospital. And so this is, another point.
Yeah, but who's got authority to tell you to? So this is a no contact order. So who's got the authority to do that? It has to be a judge has to sign that order. And you're telling me that there's no signature on this document from a judge?
Now, as you go on to the next slide, I'll show you. This is a summary of the proceedings on that day. Now, if you look at that signature, this was a signature supposedly of Judge Judith Bartholomew, who was an appointee of Matthew Bevan, and she took her seat on the bench just within a couple of weeks. We were the ones who came apparently before her court, and that's how she was the first one that we saw when they took our kids. She was the one who ordered it.
She was the one that took the children out of our custody, Judith Bartholomew, who we cannot figure out where she is now, because she's not on the payroll for the court system any longer, and we don't know what happened to her.
So didn't you have now? Have you verified that's her signature? Is that the same signature that you've seen on other documents from her?
No, we don't know if that's really her signature. And this kind of ties in with some other issues that we've seen. There have been some stories made about what's happening down there in the court system in Louisville, Kentucky, in respect to judges signing blank orders. We don't even know if a lot of the judges, we have no way of authenticating the judges' signatures. I mean, there's no way for us to know.
It's not a constitutional court. It's not a constitutional court. It's just not.
So Jim, you have an issue with this, with a judge in a county. The proper, one of the channels that you would go to address this would be the Attorney General for the state of Kentucky, and then the governor. And we did attempt to do that when Matt Bevan was governor, and Andy Bashir was the attorney general, he's now the governor of the state, but he was the attorney general at the time. And so when they would not help us, then we went to the FBI, and they wouldn't help us either, and to the U.S. Attorney's Office. So yeah, it's like and you know from all of your interviews that this is what happens to parents who are trying to get remedy for crimes that have been committed against them and their children, is that when you go to the authorities, you just end up in a black hole, and it doesn't go anywhere.
No, yeah, so Jim, we can go back to, I'm sorry, go ahead, Jim.
No, I was going to say, I've had numerous parents on the program, if you've watched any of this stuff, that went to the FBI and the whole thing dies at that point, doesn't go anywhere. It's just, nothing happens. It's a travesty. Yeah, I'm gonna go back to the. Let me go back to this.
Yeah, we can go back to the document that we were just on there.
There we go. Okay.
Okay, so if you would just scroll up a little bit there, Jim, and I'm going to ask you to zoom in. So this is kind of like a summary where it says, parents' failure to produce oldest child for recommended medical treatment. I want to make a point here that state law says that a child can only be considered being dependent, neglected, or abused, allegedly, if the failure is to get necessary medical treatment. And so it doesn't really connect with what the allegation is. Oh, she's in imminent danger. And then it kind of contradicts with state law about necessary medical treatment, which we've already presented in our case. There was no diagnostics done on our daughter to determine if she ever had the alleged condition of anorexia nervosa. So there really can't even be a legitimate place for any kind of a medical treatment where there's no actual legitimate diagnosis off of forensic, information. I mean, how can you diagnose someone with a mental health condition if you don't do a psychiatric evaluation? I don't think that can happen. But, just a little bit of a contradiction there as far as like necessary versus recommended, right? I mean, it wasn't really even recommended. I mean, we just went in there for an eye test and we just wanted to be left alone, and we were harassed and pursued and all this other stuff unfolded. But one other thing I want to make a point here. If you look down there about the fourth line down over to the right, 5 occasions. I mean, that's a pretty gross misspelling of the word occasions. I'm just trying to figure out how someone can write like that. I mean, who does that? I mean, don't we have educated people in the court system? It's just a weird anomaly there.
No, you have people that actually their criteria was they had a pulse. So if they had a pulse, yeah, they're working there.
Yeah. So a couple other things I'm going to make a point of on this, Jim, and I know we're kind of running out of time quickly here, but if you zoom back out in the big picture on that, okay, now you can see the stamp down there. You can see supposedly a court stamp, which is not on the other document, strangely. And that signature there, who really writes a signature without actually writing over the line? I mean, pretty strange. It's almost like it appears to be like a layered type thing or something. But if you zoom back out of that a little bit from the signature, you'll look over there and none of those boxes are checked. So it meets the criteria of an incomplete written instrument, okay, which would be a forgery, which is a felony under state law. All right. And you'll see over there to the left that there's no other writing. Okay. Now, fast forward several months from this date, we went into the court file on November 23rd, 2016. If you go on to the next document, I'm going to show you something.
Oh, sorry. I didn't know you want to go back so quick. Okay. Let me hit it here.
Okay.
There you go. Okay.
Okay. So the document we retrieved out of the court file is whitewashed. And a lot of these documents that are in the court file cannot even be read. And we've got scans. We've got the ones that, that we had to pay for, strangely, which we really shouldn't have been. But it's really hard to read. And if we didn't have that original, apparently the original one that was sent to us in the email, we would have never even been able to really even read a lot of what's there. But one thing I want to show you, if you scroll down to the bottom, you'll see that there's 2 additional paragraphs written down there on the left-hand side that were not on the previous document. Okay, so what's happening here with this document? Okay, why is it that we get one that's forwarded to us in email that has no information that this second one does in the court file? All right, and yet it appears to be the same one. Now, if this is a copy, how is it that can be so whitewashed? It's pretty strange there. So one other thing I want to just point out to you, Jim, here is that if we go back that previous one and scroll in there on the right-hand side, okay, it says here that custody is to remain with Julie Asif and Donald Skaggs. Turn them over to the temporary custodian, okay? Now, almost like it was predetermined that, oh, they're going to go here and they're going to stay with them, right? And, you know, as we did in our little discussion that we talked about, you know, under federal law, the state is required to notify all adult relatives, provide notice that a child is being removed. And I don't know if people in Kentucky or even throughout the nation are aware of this. We're going to get into this a couple of slides in, but they didn't follow that, not in our case, and we don't think they're following that in a lot of other people's cases. If you would scroll forward a couple of slides there, Jim, I'm going to show the people where this is. Now, this was another copy of the order, page 4, and we can come back to this, but just for the sake of time, I want to go forward here. This was the email, if you go up, that we got with the attachment on it. We were attempting to engage the healthcare people, and they wrote us back and said, oh, no, we can't give you any more information, and they attached those documents to it. Okay, so if you go on to the next slide, I'm going to show the people what the state of Kentucky has to do under Title IV, which was driven by the ASFA. In order for a state to receive grants, they have to have a plan that requires them to do certain things. And this kind of shows that, you know, that is grant money, it's authorized, it's reappropriated. And going to the next slide, and I'll show you what they have to do. It says right here that in order for a state to be eligible for payments under this part, it shall have a plan approved by the Secretary of HHS, which requires that within 30 days after removal of a child from the custody of the parents, or a person acting as custodian, that they're supposed to identify and provide notice to all adult grandparents and adult relatives and other relatives recommended by the parents. That if you can look down in subsections A, B, and C, that the child is being removed, they have options to participate in the care. So if that's the case, then why is temporary custody already being granted to two individuals who we know wanted to have our kids, and already given us evidence that, you know, that they were trying to lead us into a dependency situation to try to get hold of the kids and other things that they have done, that yet now they're getting Title IV money off of for our children without even following the provisions of federal law. So, you know, no one in my family, no adult relatives that I spoke to received any notice, you know, that our children were being removed, other than what they had heard, as far as like an official document giving them an opportunity to, you know, have temporary oversight of our kids. So this was more evidence of a pre-planned operation for the actual taking and theft of our children.
And Jim, when Mark says that they wanted our children, it wasn't so much that at least one of them wanted our children. It was they wanted control over how we raise our children, just in case that anybody is watching this and knows the dynamics of the situation. It wasn't that they wanted our children, or a certain person wanted our children. They wanted to control how we raised our children. They wanted legal custody of our children so that they could call the shots in how our children were raised.
Yeah, we think that there's a lot of evidence
that's my
right
perception of
we think that
how things were.
That their overall agenda was to try to get rid of me, break us up, and then have Terri come in and just kind of act as an overseer, but like she said, and have them control the shots as far as how they would be raised and what they would do. And, you know, we have all the evidence and statements. I mean, there's so much more that we can provide, but we just want to show the people that there is an actual infiltration in the Jefferson County family court system. It's compromised. It has not been operating with any integrity. And there are probably numerous amounts of individuals, children, families, parents who may have been subjected to this, because the evidence, and there's a couple other images I'd like to show before we close this out, Jim, to show the infiltration. But as I said before, you know, I showed just a skimmer of this, but I have over 1,000 images of these documents and, you know, across these documents, which will show that there's someone, that this person is operating as an operator. The evidence will show. So if you go down to slide number 9, Jim, we can go on down here. It's kind of toward the end. And we'll come back to these maybe another time. Because there's a lot here that we want to bring forward. But yeah, here was one that we showed. Yes, we'll start here. And we have supporting documents will show that there's a party invitation that we're able to acquire from 2005, which will show a correlation of these images. The 2013 letter, and we have other source documentation with this individual's writing style or even the actual images themselves. We think that sometimes maybe some of the writings are scanned and then used to make computer-based documents in order to case frame people. We think this is what happened in our case. We don't even think that the way the writing appears on these documents is even impossible under the way that people could even possibly write. That is that twisted. And so if you go on to the next slide, I'm going to just show the people where I showed some of these images before. These are some of the most definitive. And I'm going to show you where they are in the court documents. This is from a 2005 letter on the left, or a party invitation, and from page 5 of our trial in September of 2016 on the right. So go on to the next slide.
So wait, hold on. So that's at 11. That M has been created 11 years apart, basically, is what you're saying.
Correct. You can see it's a distinctive loop on the left and a point on the right. Okay. And if you take that, and I have these in PowerPoint, and run it over the top of them, it's an exact fit, maybe just a slight modification. Now I'm going to show you, this is the party invitation from May of 2005. And you scroll in there at the top, and I enlarged the M and extracted that on the left just so people know, but it comes out of the word atom there. If you scroll in close on the atom, you can see it. It's right there, right? Yeah. So there's the letter, okay? So go on to the next slide. And I'll show you on the court document. If you scroll up there on the right-hand side, top right-hand side, is on page 5, okay? And it's in that word discomfort. And again, I extracted the letter and enlarged it and set it there as an inset so you can kind of see where it is, okay? So if you go on to the next slide.
Well, there's more than one here. This one down here, there's an M down here that looks just alike. Yeah. And there's quite a few M's on here. That one right there looks alike. Yeah, that's the same one.
Well, Jim, you will see as we go through this that there are certain variations of these M's. You wonder, well, how many different ways can you make an M, right? So here's an enlargement of this M, okay, just so people can see a little larger, right? So go on to the next one. This is a different one from 2013, okay? The letter on the left in a court document. Go on to the one on the right. Go on to the next slide. And I'll show you where these are. This is from the page 1 of that letter that Julie Asif wrote to us in 2013. And you'll see it's right there on my problem. And people will probably go ahead and read through the letter. We don't really care. You know, we know that this was an attempt to get us into that dependency situation that we avoided. And so that's where that is. Scroll on over to the next slide. And this is where it is on the court document. And this is from a stamped court document with the judge's signature at the bottom. Okay.
What you're doing here, just to be certain, just to make sure we're on the same page, what you're showing me is just the case of fraud that you've built, basically the evidence of the case of fraud that you built against these people that basically kidnapped your children. So I mean,
when you say the whole thing is a fraud, Jim, we've got the evidence that everything that happened to us is a fraud.
Yeah, you guys have. I mean,
proceed to the fraud and to steal our children and our money, our tax money, and the attempt to destroy our lives.
I got to believe if you put this before an honest judge, there'd be no disputing the fact of what's going on here. But
well, the issue is we have tried to get an attorney to step up and help us present this in court. And it's not an issue of money. It is an issue of they do not want to touch it. And we're still waiting.
You trying to go to federal?
We're still waiting. If there are any attorneys out there that want to make a difference, want to make some money, want to do anything in their life, and they can see what we're presenting here, and you know, if you want to help this is, I have one attorney say that, well, I only want cases that are going to impact a lot, that are going to have an impact for a lot of people. Well, this, our case is going to have an impact for a lot of people because we're exposing the system. This is not just about our situation and our children. This is about a system that is unlawfully removing American children from their American families unlawfully. And, so if there are any attorneys that want to help, they can reach us. They can direct message me on Twitter at @NoLongerIgnored, or my email is letourchildrengo@protonmail.com. letourchildrengo@protonmail.com. So any attorney, any law enforcement, anybody that wants to reach us for any reason, that's how they can reach us. So just reach out to us. We're here, we're waiting, and we're not going to stop no matter how much people want to try to intimidate us and, threaten or whatever they want to say. And, if people want to say things that are slanderous or defamatory, those things can be collected also. And so we're not going to stop. And anybody that wants to come on board and help the families to expose this system, we're welcome to.
And you can always
and we've been saying this, Jim, we've been saying this in our previous podcasts, and to this very day, no one has reached out to us, even after what we disclosed so far. And we have a ton of more evidence. I mean, it's irrefutable. And, the American people will see as we continue to disclose this. And this is critical disclosure, as I said before, because you have to know what's going on. And, if this has happened, if we've got a letter on a document that we can trace back to a 2005 party invitation, okay? I mean, wow. I mean, how long has this been going on, and how many other families and children have been affected by this in the state of Kentucky? And being a national model, how many other places throughout the country are doing these type of things? Jim, I know we're running out of time, and I know you probably want to say something here, but I really like to get to the rest of the images so people can see the other ones there's only a couple more. If we could just kind of run those by real quick so people could see, because it just builds the case. Okay, go on to the next one. Now, this is, if you scroll in on this one, okay, this one on the left came from the CPS document that was delivered to us on March 25th by supposedly Shaniqua Potter, okay, and the one on the right is from a court document, the same document, page 5, that we saw the other image. So we will have two images on the same page, all right? And if you scroll to the next page, I'll show you where this is. Okay, so here's where the CPS notification letter was that was handed to us by Julie Asif at her residence on March 25th. We were there for a family visit. If you go on to the next slide, it's right there in the M in our name. You go on to page 5, this is the one where the discomfort word is at the top of the right, but I'll show you where that M is right there in the middle for Amy. Okay, go on to the next slide. And you'll see the comparison, the loop and the point, okay? It's pretty distinctive. And now you're going to tell me that I'm going to have a CPS worker and someone in the court system that's going to write like that, and there's other corroborating evidence? I don't think so. And what this shows is not just the, about the images being the same, but it presents a conspiracy because it also presents that CPS is in alignment with the family court system, raising questions as to, even the lack of fair process. And these are just travesties. How can we let this happen in our country when you have this evidence and no law enforcement agency, no attorney wants to take this on? Why? Why is it?
I wish I had an answer. I really do. We are, sadly, though, as you're correct, coming out at the end of the time here. I got another show coming up. I got to load all the material for the next show in the production software. Do you want to go ahead and give out your email address one more time and give out the place where people can get in touch with either one of you so we can continue to move forward with this and get some help for you?
Yes, thank you, Jim. We just want you to know how much we appreciate you giving us the opportunity to share the information. And I just want to give a word of hope for all of the families out there that are dealing with this situation, that you're not alone. and let's just all come together and help each other and support each other to continue to work to expose what's happening. And one of the things with our organization, Let Our Children Go, is the 3 R's that we have are reveal, repeal, and restore. And I just want to let the families know that, you know, your children hopefully will be adults one day, and don't give up hope, because there's always a way forward. There's always a way forward. And you know, we firmly believe that no matter what happens, it can be worked out for good in the end. And so if anybody needs support, we have an incredible support group through our Twitter people that we have on there, all the families and advocates. And so if you need support, or you know, you need somebody to talk to, or anybody wants to reach us, you can send me a direct message on Twitter at No Longer Ignored. And we can also be reached through email, letourchildrengo@protonmail.com. And our website, letourchildrengo.org. That's currently under construction, but we're still working on getting all that up and running. Letourchildrengo.org. So, but you can reach me through email in the meantime, if anybody wants to reach out, or just any families that need support.
Okay, got it, Jam. Sorry about that. Got things. I got to get everything ready and get set up for the next show. But it's always
Thanks,
great.
Jam.
Oh, you're welcome. It's always great to have you. We'll be in touch. Thanks so much. Okay. Bye now. Let me end this here. Okay, folks. There goes Mark and Terri Steman right there. We appreciate them coming on the broadcast. The Forgotten American. 7 children taken. It's a tragedy. It's not the first people I've had on that have had 7 children taken. I think there's the 4th family. I've had 3 other families that have had 7 children taken. It's a national tragedy, folks. It's a national tragedy going on right in front of our very eyes. This broadcast is over. We'll be coming back here in just about 13 minutes with another live broadcast here for Montana Daily Gazette. We want to thank our guest today, Mark and Terri Steman, for all their work, and especially all their work on Twitter and the help that they've given to families. And we hope you appreciate this show and help support us. You see the sponsor scrolling across the bottom. Thanks so much for looking in. We'll be back here just in a couple of minutes. Until then, this is James White for Critical Disclosure Northwest Liberty News saying bye now.